You're listening to the Station 71 podcast with your hosts, Mario,
Beth,
and Brian.
So this week we kind of had the option to do a fun topic, just because we've been kind of doing a lot of these in-depth tours lately, and we want to take a moment to kind of take a break from that, have some fun, and hang out. So we're going to play another game of Superlatives, one of our favorites. But first, let's dive into a couple news topics. First up, we have... This came out a couple hours ago. There were some details released for the Guardians of the Galaxy ride in Epcot, and the coaster will not feature inversions. I'm going to leave a link to this in the show topics or show notes as well, just so everybody can take a look at it. And I won't go through all the details. But the thing that strikes me as very odd about this is that they're actually building the show building and most of the track as a separate building behind the building where Ellen's Energy Adventure was. And the Universe of Energy building is actually going to be mostly pre-show storage, and like kind of a holding area. How do you guys feel about this?
I mean, I think... You go ahead.
I was just going to say, I guess it's going to depend on what they're utilizing the space for. I mean, if it goes back, when it comes out, if it turns out that, Universe of Energy just wasn't a large enough building for them to put the ride they wanted to in there, then I completely agree with that. If you've got to build something bigger to put the ride you want in it, then do that. But it is kind of, I guess, sad to see one of the pavilions not really get used for what it was meant for.
Yeah, so real quick, before I let Beth talk on this one, I'll kind of go into it a little bit. A lot of the pre-show stuff is going to be gallery space, similar to kind of like the collector's area in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and it's going to feature a lot of different like iconic, I guess, cultural items from Guardians of the Galaxy, as the article states. I feel like we live in a world now, especially as the Disney community, where pre-show and queues are very important based on how long the lines get. So I'm not super surprised, but at the same time, if you kind of look at the picture, the whole middle section is load unload. So I don't know how I feel about that. As far as the queue goes, I feel like it's going to be a nice queue. It's going to be an interesting thing to look at. But my main concern is that I want to say probably about 50% of this building is load unload.
Yeah, I wonder how that's gonna work too. Just like how they're making the load unload area so big and the queue. I mean, I'm sure it's still big, but it's like much smaller. But I will say that based on the queue for Flight of Passage, that I am really excited to see what they come up with. Just thinking of like the room with all the science experiments and stuff where like I literally was letting people pass me because I wanted to stop and read and watch the interactive elements or, the stuff that was moving or whatever. So hopefully they'll incorporate a lot of that type of queue in there. But yeah, as far as the load unload station being as gigantic as it is, I don't really understand why it needs to be that big.
I don't know. And like the thing that I'm kind of interested in is last week we were talking about kind of like that weight system that Dumbo has. And with the size of how this queue is, unless they dip into that load unload area, I feel like we're going to have something similar, some kind of buzzer system or something. But even then, there's going to have to be a shutoff or a cap at some point in which like they can't take any more people in. It's going to be interesting to see how this queue shapes up. But it looks like there's one gallery that you go enter through, a second one that leads into a pre-show building, and then the rest is the load unload area. So, I mean, I guess we'll see. It's going to be interesting. once this actually starts shaping out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be preparing for a massive queue. Because not only
Right.
are you getting the Disney fans, you're also getting the Marvel fans.
And the first coaster in Epcot. So
True.
So after that, we have news that is surprising to no one on this podcast. Bob Iger is potentially extending his tenure until 2021 or 22. A lot of this has to do with the acquisition with Fox, which I guess I can kind of understand why he'd want to stay through that. But I don't know. I'm not like against him, kind of like Brian was saying earlier. I don't hate him. But I was ready for some change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, with what's going on now with the Fox acquisition, I mean, this could be absolutely massive. So I would understand why Disney wouldn't want to go with a change of management in the middle of a deal like this. I mean, I've heard a lot of analysts saying possibly in the 40 to 50 billion dollar range, which is, I mean, that's bigger than Marvel, Pixar, pretty much any other acquisition of another company that Disney's had that I know of. So it would be a pretty big shakeup if someone else was, started this process and then they moved to another CEO, after it went through to hold it all together. So I can understand them wanting some stability here and keeping Iger there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
See, my whole thing, I'm super happy that they're potentially getting the rights to Fox. Just because, I am a Marvel fan and I want to see Fantastic Four get a good movie. But that's neither here nor there. But Fox was totally prime picking for Disney. They have X-Men, they have Fantastic Four, they have Avatar too, don't they? Wasn't that Fox?
It was Fox. I'm not sure if they are only distributors of it though, or if they own the actual movie rights. So I'm not sure what Disney will legally be able to use from it if they do acquire Fox.
Either way, that's still prime target for them,
Yeah.
especially considering the fact that they just opened Pandora. Like, this is a very interesting deal.
Yeah, I was listening to the Unofficial Guide Disney Dish podcast, and they were talking about this. I don't know if you guys listened to them, but
I'm way behind.
yeah, I had to catch up recently. But they were talking about how Disney announced that they're going to do their own subscription-based service like Netflix, and that acquiring Fox would be huge for them because they would get all the TV shows. And I was
Yeah, that's true too.
thought that was a really good point.
That's really true too, actually. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so it would make a lot of sense on Disney's part for sure. Now we just got to get Sony
Yeah.
and bring Spider-Man home.
Well, they already have that, like,
They have
Mini
like
deal
a
with him.
cahoots thing, but he's still not ours yet.
right.
But
So after that, we have the news that the Frozen short is ending its run with Coco. I've seen this date kind of all over the place. I know that Beth and I kind of looked it up a little bit before we started, and the official date that we found was tomorrow is the last day, being the 8th, not the day that this comes out, because that will be well gone. But I have not seen it yet. I don't know how I feel about it. I know it's gotten a lot of mixed reviews on social media with the Olaf short being so long and before Coco. So I guess this will be interesting to see how this affects the ratings of this movie.
yeah, definitely. And like I was kind of saying before we started recording, it's gotten a lot of hate for being as long as it is, but I don't think it's bad in itself. I think, like, my only complaints were that it felt kind of forced, like, trying to milk the frozen cow, and that it was too long for what it was, and the fact that it wasn't a Pixar short in front of a Pixar film. But taking it aside and like trying to look at it objectively, I thought it was really cute. I really like Olaf, and the songs were pretty catchy, and it was like a nice storyline. It had like a nice message to it. It wasn't like meaningless by any means, but I think it should have definitely remained what it was originally supposed to be, which was a TV special, not in front of a film.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it yet, so, my judgment doesn't mean much, but, going into a Pixar movie, it was always kind of exciting to see what the short was going to be, and not really knowing, they're usually good, but, it might be hit or miss, but it was always something exciting. It was, generally an interesting little short that they put together, and you didn't know what you were going to get going into it. And I feel like with Frozen, you kind of know exactly what you're walking into, whether or not you like it, but it kind of takes an element out of going to see a Pixar movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, just like the being familiar with those characters is nice, but like you were saying, it was nice to see things like Feast and Paperman, because you have no idea. You don't know anything about these characters. You don't know the story. I totally agree with you on that.
I'm going to come out and say it. Pixar shorts are so much better than Disney shorts, too.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that Pixar can put out a collection of Pixar shorts and it's really good, I think that says something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit biased because I'm over Frozen at this point. I think a lot of people really are. So seeing it go, I'm not really going to care one way or another. I still have to make a point to go see Coco, and I almost saw it this weekend, but ran out of time, sadly.
We better go see it tomorrow, or you're not going to get to see the long that's in front.
The not so short.
The long. I'm sure it'll be on the DVD. That's the thing that, like...
That's true.
I'm not really worried about, because I'll end up getting the DVD either way, and I'm sure that it'll be there when it's, released.
Yeah. But
So that said, are we ready to play some random Disney superlatives?
Yeah.
I'm ready. Let's see.
All right. So we kind of did this similarly to how we did it last time, except we randomized the whole list, so we're not going to sit here and like dig through each one at a time. So Beth has the list in front of her. I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Our first superlative is best place to watch Illuminations.
Oh, that's a hard one. So, best place could mean two things. Best view or, like, favorite place. Because I think I have two for this one. The best place, I think, is, oddly enough, not oddly enough, it's the most crowded place, and that's right when you first walk into World Showcase. That, like, center viewpoint, but everyone always stands there. So I absolutely hate watching Illuminations from there. But my favorite spot, I think, is there's like a little kind of roped off railing area in, I think it's Japan. But wherever they have like little side alleys that you can kind of duck into, they're never crowded. And I think those are the best spots to watch Illuminations.
Yeah, I think the best, like you said, I think as far as the view goes, that little spot that everybody crowds around is like where you get to see the most. But again, like your point was that it's not fun to stand in a crowd when you don't have to be. I think there's like the little like, I don't remember the name of it, but the little quick service window in Mexico has that little dip area with the railing. And I think that's like it's a nice spot to watch it because you're like close enough to the front that you still get the same effect, but not as much of a crowd.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I actually kind of like watching it from the American Adventure if you can get a spot near the railing. I know you're in the very back, so it's the downside of it is if you're trying to leave after that, there's a massive amount of people throughout World Showcase that you have to go through first. But if you can get up right next to the railing, I kind of feel like you get to see the entirety of the lake and a pretty good vantage point of the show.
That's actually a really good spot. I didn't even think to watch it from there.
All right.
So what do we got next?
Let's see. Country most likely to be added to World Showcase.
I literally just looked at that on the list.
I think it's going to be Brazil. They've
So
been
why do you-
talking about it forever.
Why do you think that, and what would you put there
Well,
if you could do it?
I think that because it's been a rumor for so long, and that, if I'm not mistaken, there were actually like plans that were starting to get laid out for a Brazil pavilion back in like the late 80s, early 90s. And I also think that it would be because there's such a large draw from like Brazilian tourists that would be something that they can like, hey, you know, come come see your home country, but not in your home country. I don't know. But as far as to what I'd put there, I don't even know. I hate to sound ignorant, but I'm really not super familiar with Brazilian culture. But I do know that they have delicious beverages because of Food and Wine's kiosk. So I would obviously want some, it's Epcot. You have to have some sort of bar type lounge area. Do you guys know what like standard Brazilian food is?
Nope.
No idea.
No?
I just wanted to see if you had an answer for that one.
Yeah, no. As far as attractions go, I have no idea what should go there, but
I feel like it doesn't even, like, the World Showcase countries don't even really need attractions.
yeah,
Like, Japan doesn't have an attraction, and that's probably my favorite country.
me too.
As long as they have a big gift shop with cool stuff to look at.
What do you guys think?
I'm gonna go and say Greece.
Okay.
That's a good one.
I feel like Greek food is really good. Greek architecture is really great. So they could even have something similar to like the Morocco Pavilion, where it's just kind of like a little walk around area. And I would be totally fine with like just looking at the architecture and like different designs, or even like an art showcase or something like that. That would be really cool too, because there's definitely a lot of things they could do with that. Even if they did like Greek mythology or stuff like that, that would be an interesting
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a really cool one. And hopefully we could get like a Hercules meet and greet.
Ooh.
Just throwing that out there.
That would be a good time.
And
Yeah.
Meg.
Perfect.
Yeah, that would be really great. I would love to see that.
So kind of similarly to that, I thought Egypt would be a pretty cool one to do too.
That would be really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, any country with like strong mythology is really fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any ideas for your Egypt pavilion?
I mean, I
Or just
think, not to be stereotypical, but there'd probably be a giant pyramid there. But, I mean, I don't know, as far as, like, what they could do for attractions or what, I would like there to be a maybe circle vision show going around and looking at the different historical parts of Egypt. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not sure as far as like a whole showcase of stuff what they would want to put in it.
I don't think that's even being stereotypical at all. I think, especially with the World Showcase pavilions and how little room they have to highlight things that people know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, obviously they're going to put the Eiffel Tower in the France Pavilion. Like, there's things they have to put there because that's the touristy thing. So pyramids would not be stereotypical in the least, I don't think.
Yeah. All right. So our next one is Best Hidden Mickey.
I
That is
am not a
really
Hidden Mickey fan, so this is really hard for me. I feel like Brian's got a list here.
I mean, the two main ones that I've already mentioned on here, just like take your pick on The Little Mermaid. either one of those I think are really cool, just because it's not just like a hidden thing. You have to be there on a certain day, or you have to be looking at this exact angle to see the hidden Mickey thing, which I think makes them really unique.
Yeah, I think as far as uniqueness goes, those two are definitely the best ones. And maybe we should recap, just in case someone's listening that didn't hear the last couple of episodes where we talked about them.
Yeah, so there's one where as you walk through the queue, if you look back at one of the rock formations at a certain angle, I think it's like either 3 or 4 different rocks kind of line up, and it makes the outline of Steamboat Willie. So that's not your traditional like tri-circle Mickey one, but I guess still technically a hidden Mickey. And then the other one is there's a rock formation that allows light to pass through it only on November 18th at such an angle that it makes the tri-head Mickey, hidden Mickey light basically on the pavement. So that's pretty cool.
Which November 18th, for people who don't know, is Mickey's birthday.
Yes.
So yeah, those are super cool. I think mine is probably going to be not even really, I don't even know if this is going to count, but I think it's really cool that they have the solar panels.
Yes, that is
if you guys
very
look
cool.
at
That's a really cool
Google
one,
Maps, you know, I think that's really cool that they have that as a hidden Mickey.
Where are those solar panels exactly, do you know?
I believe they're outside of Epcot.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you pass them if you're driving into Epcot, if I recall correctly.
I think you're
I
right.
don't ever drive, so I can't tell you. Man, I'm not a hidden Mickey person at all. I'm actually really bad at finding them too. But I do know that there is, or was, because I can't remember if it's still there, a Mickey Nutcracker in the Carousel of Progress, the last scene. I like that one, because I always found that one pretty easily. But I'm so bad at like finding actual hidden Mickeys.
On a similar note, this isn't on our superlatives, but I'm just curious if you guys have a favorite Easter egg in one of the films.
The films? The only ones that ever really come to mind are all the Pixar ones.
Yeah.
Just because Pixar always does like a really good tie-in with the, like, all of their films having some kind of like, you know, shared item, which has totally spawned the whole Pixar shared universe theory. If anybody has ever looked into something so crazy, it's got to be that. But yeah, I think Pixar, it hands down takes the best tie-ins, and I can't even pick one from that list.
I
What
think
about you guys?
picking from Pixar, I just love that the Pizza Planet truck
Yes,
is in every
that is very
Yeah.
cool.
And I thought it was really interesting, and hopefully no one will think that this is like a spoiler or anything, but in Coco there's a scene, me having seen it 3 times now, I'm looking in the background for stuff instead of looking where they want you to look like any rational Disney fan would. And I was looking in like the background when I saw it earlier tonight, and they had a scene, like it was like a wide angle view of like a plaza, and there's piñatas hanging in like a vendor's booth, and there were 4 piñatas. There was Buzz Lightyear, Woody, Mike Wazowski, and Sully, and I thought that was really cool.
That's cool.
That is really cool. See, I love when they do things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is I forget which movie it was the short for, but the Pixar short Jerry's Game that has the old man like playing chess with himself in the park.
Mm-hmm.
He is the guy that comes and fixes Woody in Toy Story 2 once his arm gets torn. So I thought that was a cool little nod back to. I'm wanting to say that was before A Bug's Life, so that was like Pixar's first major one, right? So
It was 97 was when it came out, and you were right, it did come out. Or no, it was made in 97, and it came out in 98 before Bug's Life. So
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, that was like their first big motion picture. So I guess they wanted to do a throwback to that, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think I ever made that connection.
Yeah, it took me a while to make that one, but I think I read that online somewhere, and I was like, wow, that's really cool.
Definitely. All right. Our next superlative is most divisive ride or attraction, meaning people either love it or hate it.
That's a hard one too. The thing I hate about doing these blind is like I don't have time to think about it.
I know, it's like you gotta
I feel like I'm gonna regret my answers later whenever I say something.
I think current attractions, I'm gonna say Journey into Imagination, and
That's a good one.
I feel like though the people that like it are just holding on to what it used to be and not really looking at what it is now. But yeah, I'm definitely on the other side of that fence. I cannot stand Journey into Imagination with Figment.
I don't really hate it, but I do see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, I don't hate it either. I think it has a couple of cool effects in it, but that's probably only the redeeming quality of it for me. And the problem being is that I love the Figment comics, and that's just such a cool world that they made. And I know it's more based on previous iterations of the Imagination ride, but it's hard to read those comics and have this fantastical, cool, kind of steampunky world and then ride that, and Figment is super annoying.
I think that's, like Brian was saying, that's the problem with like Figment in general, is that everyone either has some tie to him like for nostalgia reasons, or they love the idea of what that ride could be. And it's even if you ask people that love it, like my aunt is a huge fan of the previous iteration of Journey into Imagination. And, like, you know, every time you ask her about Figment, she's like, oh, yeah, you know, I love him. Like, I always end up getting something for her that's Figment related every time we go down. But, like, when we go down as a whole family and, you know, we end up riding that ride, she always gets off and she's always a little bit disappointed. And it's like, you know what you're getting into at this point, but still.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this one's a really hard one. I think I'm gonna go with a ride that I haven't done yet, and I feel like I may be stealing Beth's thunder on this one, but I'm gonna say Navi River Journey.
Ooh, that is good.
A lot of people I've seen lately have been love it or hate it with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that love it are all about the animatronic. But everything else that I've seen is just like, well, it's a pretty ride.
That's
So,
literally
I think-
the perfect description.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people stand with this attraction at this point. It's either you love the animatronic so much that, you know, this is a ride that you have to ride on. I actually saw someone the other day asking about getting just a fast pass for Navi River Journey, not Flight of Passage, and I was like, wow, that's a new one.
The only reason you should be getting a fast pass for Navi River Journey is if you can't get one to Flight of Passage. But yeah, I agree with that for sure. Because I mean, I have the same opinion of it as it's a pretty ride, but ... You know, there's a lot, it leaves a lot to be desired. But you did not steal my thunder. That's not what I was going to say. I am going to go with It's a Small World.
Okay.
Because I feel like there are people who are diehard Small World fans because it's, you know, such a classic and all the ties with the World's Fair and everything. And I appreciate it for that reason. But Small World is something that I ride maybe once every 3 or 4 trips. It's just, I can't handle being in that song for 20 minutes that many times.
Kirsten's gonna listen to this episode and immediately quit the podcast.
Oh my gosh. She should have been here to defend it. I'm just kidding.
So what's next up?
All right. Attraction most likely to still be at Disney World in 50 years.
I'm gonna take what you said last turn and say Small World. I feel like that's a ride that cannot go anywhere.
I don't know.
I feel like it could, but I feel like Disney won't do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I don't think. Yes, I think there's things that could go in its place, but I feel like because of the classic, or because it's a classic, and because it's got so many like ties to the World Showcase and all that, Disney won't do anything with it.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think mine is probably kind of a cop-out, but the first one that popped into my head was the Prince Charming Regal Carousel, because you can't put anything else in that spot, and why would they take away anything that's going to keep, people entertained?
Yeah, but see, I thought the same thing about Stitch's Great Escape, and here we are.
That's true. Well, at least that they could turn into like a meet and greet area.
Yeah, like they have been doing.
Yeah.
What about you, Brian?
I'm gonna be extremely biased, just because it's my favorite ride, and say Haunted Mansion. But I think I'll defend it by saying that it's been, for the most part, unchanged at Disney since it's been opened, and it's still extremely popular. So with that, I think that it shows that it has longevity. And I don't know, it's always hard for me to ever look to the future and imagine Haunted Mansion not being there, because it kind of ties all of Liberty Square together for me. So that's what I'm going with.
I have to kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think that yes, it does, but the reason I didn't go with it is because I can totally see them doing something to, even if it's just refurbishing it and changing like a couple pieces of it. I don't think that I think that that's a ride that's going to see some changes at some point.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think that's a really good point, that how unchanged pretty much it's remained. But I also think, and maybe I just am hanging out with good people, but I feel like the fraction of people that dislike Haunted Mansion is so slim compared to the people that absolutely love it, and they love it years and years and years of it being essentially the same exact ride.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good pick.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we
Wait,
have.
hold on. Before
one?
we move on, I just noticed that all of us picked an attraction in Magic Kingdom.
Ooh, good point.
I think that's saying something.
Yeah.
Because, like, even thinking about it, a lot of the attractions in Magic Kingdom don't really change, so
Well, I mean,
I think that says something for the park itself.
I think if you look at anything else, Animal Kingdom's too new to say that, something could stay there forever, because it seems like they could change up all kinds of stuff. Hollywood Studios, they could basically demolish the whole park and start from scratch. So I don't think you can pick anything in Hollywood Studios.
Isn't that kind of what they're doing?
Basically, yeah. So
And Epcot's like a revolving door too.
Right.
I mean, everything in those pavilions has kind of seen change at least at one iteration.
which is cool.
Yeah.
I kind of like that about the pavilions though, because it does feel like the World's Fair. It's kind of like every 5 to 10 years, a lot of stuff's gonna get flipped around in there. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Anyway, now you can move on to the next one. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, that was a good observation. All right, so our next one is, and I'm probably going to be terrible at this because I never use the dining plan, but best use of a snack credit.
Yeah. I've never used the dining plan either, but I do know that Dole Whip's a snack credit, so I'm gonna go with Dole Whip.
Do you have one, Beth?
I don't know what qualifies for snack credits, but I feel like a turkey leg would be a good value if it does,
Yeah, that's
I
a
think
lot
it
of
does.
food.
because it's huge and it's expensive.
And I think that's kind of like where this is hard because Disney has a lot of really good snacks. So, really, almost any like specialty snack that you can get is a good use of it. But I have to go with my favorite snack, which is school bread in Norway. I love school bread.
I've never had it.
It's pretty good. It's one of those things that like is weird for me because I don't like coconut, and it's got coconut on it. But it's good.
I would also say that it would probably be a good value to get something that you can take home with you. Like one of those really expensive, I don't know, bags of cookies or Rice Krispie treat or whatever, like specialty thing that is easily transportable.
I've heard a lot of people that have the snack credit saved up at the end will go and get a bunch of Rice Krispie treats because they'll last.
Well, and the hard thing with this one is I use the dining plan a lot. I'm one of those people that can justify spending the cost early just to not have to worry about saving money on my trip for food. And that's how I justify it being worth it. But I almost never use snack credits. And I think that's the hardest part about managing the dining plan. Because come the end of my trip, I have like 6 or 7 saved up just from me alone. And it's because I don't think to ever use them. One thing that we used to do, though, that I really do like and I can recommend as an option for anyone, there's a couple places that are open fairly early that have things like cinnamon buns or, for example, we still always go to that one bakery that's in the back of the France Pavilion, and we'll get breakfast there. And almost everything in there is a snack credit because it's pastries and stuff like that. And I'm not a big breakfast eater, so going in there, stopping, getting a snack for breakfast is enough to hold me over till lunch. So that's the only time that I ever really use them. But at the end of my trip, I always find myself getting like Rice Krispie treats or like a bag of pretzels or something just to use it and expend the value of the dining plan.
Yeah. I've only stayed on property once, so that's my only opportunity to use the dining plan, but I've done the math and it just doesn't make sense for me even a little bit. Like I would literally be having to order the most expensive thing at every place to make it worth it for me. But I will say that in 2018 it is going to include one alcoholic beverage with every meal. So I think that adds a lot of value to it.
Yeah, it does, especially if that is something you order, because that's never been included. But I always, like I said, I always use the dining plan as a way to kind of manage my money, and I think that's the only reason that I can justify spending the money for it.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. When I was planning on becoming a pass holder, I contemplated if it would be quote-unquote worth it, like if I could get my money's worth out of it, which it's super easy to do if you go even for a week, in my opinion. But the reason that I ultimately decided on making both me and my boyfriend for us to get pass holder was the convenience of not having to think like, I don't want to waste a ticket just to go to Epcot for a couple of hours in the evening. And, because it makes it a lot easier to convince yourself, like, yeah, let's go, all we have to do is go grab dinner at Epcot and then we can go back to the hotel. And it's not like we wasted any money on a ticket. So that totally makes sense for your dining plan tactic.
Yeah, that's kind of the same way, the same reason we always end up with park hopper tickets, because, if we get bored in the middle of the day, or say we want to go to Hollywood Studios, we don't want to waste a ticket on that. Like, you want to go where you want to go, so, not having to manage things while you're on vacation is super easy.
Yeah, and it makes it a lot easier to be more spontaneous, I think. Well, at least in the pass holder situation. I don't know about the dining plan.
Yes and no.
But, alright, so our next one is Best Disney Springs Store. I'm going to say the Art of Disney. I just think that store is amazing. I will probably never own anything in there because it's also expensive. But
yeah, it makes me sad and happy to go in there because I see all the stuff I want and all the stuff I'll never buy. But it is really cool.
Yeah, my best friend bought a painting from there. He's a huge Nightmare Before Christmas fan, and it was this really gorgeous painting of Sally, and it was like $700.
Oh,
I was
God.
like, I cannot justify that.
Yeah.
I wish I could.
I like the pre-painted ones that they have that are like in batches because they're so much less money. Mm-hmm. And they're easy to justify buying. As I'm looking at like 4 of them sitting on my floor without, frames around them. But I do love that store.
I'm going to say the Lego store.
Oh, that's a good one too.
One, because I do collect Legos, so I go there almost every time I go to Disney Springs. And 2, I just love all the theming around it too, like all the giant, one-off Lego creations that they make around the store is just really cool. So
yeah, those displays are super awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say that my favorite, I have 2. I'm gonna say Candy Cauldron, just because I like the stores that you can see them doing things in. Mm-hmm. And that's always like a really cool thing to kind of stop and look at. And I would probably tie that with the Crystal Arts store just because of the same reasons. But World of Disney at the same time, because it's kind of a hodgepodge of everything you can find on property. Mm-hmm. So if there's something that I know I'm looking for and I can't find it in the parks, I'll try to look here because I know that they have almost everything.
Yeah, and it's good for like the last day when you're like, oh crap, I didn't get a souvenir for my mom or whatever. And just
Right.
swing by Disney Springs and you're like, I'm definitely gonna find something there.
God, that's me every trip.
It was funny. All right, so I think for this one we should allow both past and present to be included.
no.
It is best nighttime show.
Oh, well, then if we're doing past and present, I think we know what the winner's going to be.
Wishes?
Yeah, Wishes.
Kirsten doesn't even have to be here. It's gonna win.
See, I love Wishes, I do, but I'm such a Phantasmic nerd that I think that would probably be my pick. I know I said past and present because I knew one of you guys would pick Wishes, so you're welcome.
Not all 3 of us.
But
See, I have to say Wishes too, because Wishes is like such a classic, and Wishes is like what I want every nighttime show to be. Like I don't see anything wrong with Wishes, other than the fact that maybe they were starting to move into this projection mapping territory, and that's the way of the future, whatever. But the soundtrack to Wishes was perfect. Like I don't see anything bad about that. They not only found a way to make like a medley of Disney songs, but they found a way to make it its own. I think the thing that I've kind of complained about with Happily Ever After, even though I haven't seen it, is that the soundtrack is too much of just like cut and paste Disney songs. Everything in Phantasmic flows together, so much so that you wouldn't even realize that there are sections of the song or sections of the soundtrack that are split up into individual tracks. Mm-hmm. It all just goes. And I think the fireworks cues had their place. They were perfectly done in that respect. But maybe I'm just a little biased and I love Wishes a little too much. Or maybe I'm channeling my inner Kirsten and,
making up for her absence.
Right. But I also have to say, and I know this is super unpopular, but I love Illuminations. I know that's been getting a lot of flack lately, especially with Wishes leaving and that staying for now. Like, I don't think there's really anything wrong with it besides the fact that all the different vantage points of that attraction make for some unsatisfactory spots to watch it. But I also think in its defense that works really well for it, because every time you see Illuminations, it's never going to be exactly the same.
Yeah. I don't dislike Illuminations by any means. It's just, it's not my favorite, so I should probably make more of an effort to watch it more often than I do, but it is a pretty show for sure. Okay. So moving on, we have best dessert.
I feel like that ties in with the snack credit, kind of. But I often don't eat enough dessert to really have a good response on this one.
I'm gonna say the bread pudding at Ohana.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I've never had it, but I've heard a lot about it.
It is extremely good. And you can order it from the little bar area outside of Ohana, so you don't actually have to get Ohana reservations to enjoy it.
Nice.
That's a good little tip.
Side
I have
note,
to go. What's that? Go ahead.
since we're at the Polynesian, have you guys had the Tonga toast?
I haven't. I've heard a lot about it, but I have not had it.
So, do you know what it is?
No.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure you can get it at Kona Cafe and Captain Cook's. It's like a breakfast thing. It's like French toast, but it's stuffed with, I want to say, bananas, like cream or something. But a lot of people talk about it, and that's one of the things that's like been on my list of things to try. And I was just seeing if you guys had an opinion, but I'll have to try it and let you guys know.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
sound
that's
good.
one that I've heard, and I've kind of been meaning to try, but I haven't had a chance to.
Do you have a dessert in mind, Mario?
I have to go. This is going to be really like, not like left field, but surprising because you can get it in a lot of places. But I really like zebra domes. Like,
That's another thing I've never had.
they're pretty good. I mean, they're just kind of chocolate cakes, but you really can't. And I'm going to say that, and someone's going to be like, "They're not just chocolate cakes," but I mean, you can't really go wrong there. And they're one of those things that Disney does really well. You can get it in a lot of places. I know you can get them at Boma specifically. And I know there's a couple places in Animal Kingdom I think you can get them. But I like them. I think they're really good.
So is it literally just like, it's chocolate based and it has like the
It's-
hard icing stuff on the outside?
They're like a chocolate cake that has like a coffee flavoring to it. I know it's got Kahlua in it. I can't find the exact recipe for it, so I'm not going to sit here and dig for it forever. But it's got like a hard chocolate shell on the outside. But it's really good.
Fun fact, I just Googled it because I was also going to try to see what a general description of it was. And somebody had gotten some of them from the counter service location at Animal Kingdom Lodge, the Mara.
Yeah.
And on the like the plastic to go box has like a label with the ingredients, and it literally says flour, sugar, eggs, butter, alcohol.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, I don't know if I've ever told this story on here, but obviously, as most of us probably know, when you cook things, alcohol obviously loses the whole alcoholic effect. But one of the times that we went to Boma, like one of the first few times we went there, my little cousin devoured a ton of these. Like, a ton. And she was like, she had to be in like 7th or 8th grade at this point. Like, she was young enough that, you know, seeing the sign that says may contain alcohol, she should have known that it wasn't going to do anything to her, but it had a total placebo effect on her.
That's
and,
amazing.
You know, she walked back to the table and she's like, guys, I ate so many of them and they have alcohol. I think I might be drunk. And we're like, no, you're definitely not.
That's awesome.
What about you? What's your favorite dessert?
Mine is like a really weird one. It's the Pongu Lumpia at Pongu Pongu in Pandora. It's basically a fried Dole Whip. It's like imagine a spring roll, but on the inside is cream cheese and pineapple. And it's like crispy and warm, and then like the middle is like sweet and soft and creamy, and it's so good.
That sounds like something that I would actually probably really enjoy.
But it's very, I would say that and Dole Whips are tied for number one. But they're essentially the same thing, just one's hot and one's cold. Okay. Let's see. Worst ride theme execution.
Oh.
Wow.
This one's a little bit of a thinker.
I know.
Do we want to think on it and come back?
Sure, I guess. Because I'm really going to have to think on that one.
All right. Best thrill ride.
Test Track, I think. I'm going to go with Test Track. This was a hard one between this and I guess Rock and Roller Coaster, because I really wouldn't consider Tower of Terror a thrill ride, as much as it probably is. When I think thrill rides, I think like coasters or like fast rides, and maybe this is just like nostalgia, but I have like really fond memories of the original Test Track, and even with the Tron overlay that it's got now, I think it's still probably one of my favorites. And who can beat those 60-mile-an-hour turns?
I do miss the original theming to it, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If I had the choice to bring it back, I totally would.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would pick Expedition Everest. That's like my favorite coaster of all time.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that, definitely.
Yeah. I can add that to a runner-up. Disney hasn't done a bad thrill ride, though. Like, well, I'm going to say that, and I feel like it's going to come to me later that there's one that I really don't like. But, like, just thinking about it, that one's really hard because all of the thrill rides, I think, are kind of on par with each other.
Yeah, I don't know. There are definitely ones that I like less, but I don't really dislike any of them.
Well, which ones would you put, like, at the bottom of your list if you had to?
Super unpopular opinion. My least favorite thrill ride is Space Mountain.
What?
Fair though.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. It's because I don't feel like there are enough effects and you're essentially just going around in the dark. And B, because it is in the dark, I always feel like my neck is gonna get cut off, and I feel like I have this like weird biological instinct to like scrunch my shoulders, and every time I get off of it my neck is so stiff.
So, question for you guys. If you had never seen Space Mountain with the lights on, would you still do that? Because I feel like the only reason I do that is because I've seen the track with the lights on.
I've done it since the first time I rode it as an adult. I don't know if I did it as a kid, but
Yeah, I don't think it would make a difference. I think just that feeling of, like, because I mean, yes, you're in the dark, but you still can tell that there's, like, stuff everywhere around you, so it still, I feel like, would make you want to, like, ball up and not hit anything.
Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm just, like, super not aware of things or blind.
or maybe I'm overly cautious. Who knows?
Who knows?
I know a lot of people love it, but it's probably my least favorite.
I can see, I love Space Mountain, but I can totally see why you wouldn't. Especially since that's one of the older ones. And I feel like out of the, like, older rides, that one suffers the most.
I also feel like it's kind of rough. Like, the track is not as smooth as, and obviously that plays into it, the fact that it's older. But I've heard a lot of people say that the Disneyland version, since it got refurbished semi-recently, is a lot smoother. So I think that would maybe make it a little better to me.
I really hope that somewhere down the line that Disney World does the same thing, because I would also like to get the side-by-side seats that Disneyland has.
Yeah, that would be great. And that would be good for them too, because that would increase capacity like a ton.
Totally understand that.
But I do find that if you sit at the front, it's a lot better than sitting at the back, since obviously, you know, if you're at the back car, you're getting more of the shaky aspect of it. So, but like I said, I don't hate it. I just put it at the bottom. Do you guys have any that you would put at the bottom in particular? Or do you just totally love all of them?
I'm sorry, Mario, but Test Track would probably be at the bottom of mine.
Oh no.
Especially since the
That's
update.
fine.
Well, but and I don't like hate Test Track or anything like that, but you know, like you were saying, when Disney does a thrill ride, they generally do a pretty good job of it. And I don't know, just comparing it to everything else, I would put it at the bottom, but you know, that doesn't necessarily make it a bad ride. I just think, you know, if you are comparing it to like Expedition Everest, and I personally really like Space Mountain, so that one's still pretty high up on my list, and everything else that, I don't know, it just doesn't meet those expectations that Disney sets, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. The problem with a lot of these thrill rides, like I kind of said, they're all on par with each other for me. I don't think there's one bad one that I, you know, can think of. But lowest on my list, and I really hate to say this, is probably Seven Dwarfs. And it's mostly because that ride still has such a long demand for a short attraction. Mm-hmm. And I think that totally kills it for me. If I'm standing in line for that long and the ride just doesn't make me feel like my wait was worth it, I think that that's kind of a killer. When this ride drops in wait times, if it ever drops in wait times, I think then it'll probably be, you know, up there on my attractions. But it's by no means a bad one either. Kind of like Brian said, it's you know, not awful, but it's not one that I can really feel justifiable waiting in line for.
Yeah, fun fact, it's 3 minutes long.
It feels way shorter than that, actually.
Yeah, but man, 3 minutes? I didn't even realize like it was that bad. But it's like the ride itself is, you know, it's nice, and it would, like you said, if it was longer it would be way better.
Yeah.
But
so do we want to flip back to that the theming execution? Does anyone have an answer for that one?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my instinct is to just keep hating on Test Track.
My instinct, and I hate that you guys are going to totally disagree with me on this, but I'm going to say anything in Chester and Hester's. I can't get behind that theming. And I know that you've told me that you love this, and I know that like you love the theme behind it, but I'm sorry, I can't buy it.
Well, here's you got to think about the question this way. I think everything in Chester's and Hester's executes the theme perfectly. The big question is whether or not you like that theme, because everything in there is straight out of a, you know, like roadside carnival.
Well, here's the thing. I'm actually going to bounce that back at you and say it doesn't, because while it's in the Dinoland USA area, the only thing that really ties it to a dinosaur theme is the fact that Chester and Hester are dinosaurs.
Okay, good point. It's like what circle are we looking in? Are we looking just in Chester and Hester? Are we looking at Dinoland? Are we looking at Animal Kingdom? Because yeah, if you look in Dinoland and Animal Kingdom, then yeah, the entirety of Chester's and Hester's doesn't fit necessarily, but I guess at least.
See, I would disagree.
Why would you disagree?
I think it fits.
Counterpoint.
See, here's what I think. I think that Chester's and Hester's is perfectly placed and that it fits absolutely amazing if you know the backstory. But most people are not going to put in enough thought, like brain power, to put the pieces together, and B, you know, it's not as obvious as it could be as to what the backstory is, which for people that are listening and don't know the backstory, It's that the Dino Institute, where the dinosaur ride is located, they found some fossils, and this elderly couple decided that they were going to try and bank on that success by building this little sideshow with all the little state fair attraction type of things and the restaurant. And that's why Restaurantosaurus kind of looks like a shabby diner, is because it's like, this is our little dinky restaurant that we made to make money off of the Dino Institute's success. So I think if you know the backstory, it fits really well and it's really well executed. But to anyone that doesn't, it looks like, why did Disney put this dinky area in here? This is not Disney material.
Yeah, and I do like the backstory, and I know I've said that on here before, but it does seem kind of weird that Disney would do this, because you got to think probably 95% of the people that go to this area never make that connection, which I think is why so many people dislike it, because it requires so much digging for you to get the backstory.
Pun. Digging.
Well, here's my thing with it. Like, it feels weird where it's placed at, solely on the fact that, like, you walk from Discovery Island, you go through that dinosaur play area, Dinoland USA is directly behind that, and then back in the, I guess it's the right-ish corner, is where the Dinosaur Institute is, or whatever it is. Like, the actual Dinoland Institute stuff is split between Chester and Hester's. And I feel like there is, yes, a theme to it, like you guys have said, but I just feel so shoehorned in there to me. I feel like they could demolish this and put one good ride in that section, and I'd be totally okay with that.
I kind of feel like almost another ride needs to be built somewhere else in Dinoland so that Chester's and Hester's isn't occupying such a large percentage of it, and that would do better for me.
Yeah. Like, if they maybe, I don't know, if they took out like one section of Chester and Hester's, like the arcade games, do they really draw that much of a demand that they can't just get rid of them and plop something else in there, even if it's like, I don't know, play area or something that they can, bring it more together with? I feel like Chester and Hester's takes up so much of the space in Dinoland that the actual, like, dinosaur theming behind it is so lost.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. Just because it is really well thought out, but obviously not well thought out enough to where most of the visitors are going to capture the actual concept.
Right. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I guess, my thing is that I never rode the original test track, so I don't have a basis of comparison. And I don't think it's a bad ride, and I think it's kind of cool to go through, like, being a crash test dummy, essentially. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that I enjoy the pre-show more than the actual ride, because we just, it's who can make the dumbest looking car is super fun to me for some reason, and then it's just kind of a series of weird, I don't know, space age looking experiments that are modern day experiments, I guess.
Right.
So I think if they had, like, gone in with the Tron theme, it would have, like, the theming would have made more sense, I think.
You probably wouldn't have really liked the original then, if that's the case, because honestly, the only thing that's really different is the way that the inside looks. Like,
but wasn't there a ride before? Because I saw that before they did all, like, the blue lights and everything.
Oh yeah.
But I thought you guys were talking about the fact that there was, like, a different ride.
Oh, there was, but I never experienced that.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
Did you experience the ride prior to that, Brian?
Are you talking about the ride that came before Test Track?
Yeah.
At least not that I remember.
Yeah. I can't even remember what was there, to be completely honest with you.
It was called World of Motion, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was
okay. That is right.
Yeah, because Chevy sponsored that one too, didn't they? I think before they came in.
General Motors.
Okay, well, yeah, General Motors. So.
But no, I don't remember that. But I have heard about that attraction, which this is totally going to date so many people. I don't know. I mean, the original test track I think was definitely better, even though there's not anything really different.
It made more sense.
Right, and it was more, you had that crash test dummy feel, and I'll even go as far as to say that I liked the queue better. I know that when they upgraded it, they were trying to keep it more like, this is where cars are going to head in 20 years kind of thing. But I feel like Disney doesn't think about how dated the future is, as awful as that sounds. Because every time they try to do something futuristic, you end up with Tomorrowland syndrome, where, tomorrow comes and that stuff isn't there.
Which is interesting, because I feel like Tomorrowland, the movie, captured the future really well.
Yeah, but when that rolls around and it never happens.
Yeah.
We'll say the same thing, which is actually funny because you could probably go as far as to say that a lot of Tomorrowland is super dated and could use an overhaul, but I don't see that happening anytime soon at all.
I think they've been chipping away at it slowly.
Yeah, but we end up with more IPs in that part of the park.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, Brian, what is your response?
I already said, I think, enough about Journey to Imagination. So it was hard to go between Journey to Imagination or Soarin'. And I know I've, beat down Soarin' a lot on here, but I don't think it's a bad ride. I think it's a decent ride with an absolutely horrible queue. But I don't think it belongs in the Land Pavilion. I'm not sure where else you'd put it, but when you look at what else is in the Land Pavilion with Living with the Land, and then at the Circle of Life Theater, you have this like cohesive, balance with nature theme going on, and then Soarin' just has nothing really to do with that. So I think it pretty much fails at executing the theme that's supposed to be in that pavilion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, actually. The thing that sucks about that, like, even if you are for it staying in the Land Pavilion, that queue is so awfully themed.
Oh god, it's just
like,
does it have a theme?
It doesn't, and
it doesn't.
I thought when they added the other theater and all the especially when they changed it, to Soaring Around the World, I was like, all right, this is it. This is their chance to go in there and make something out of it, and it's still so bad.
Yeah, it's nothing like looking at blank walls for 40 minutes.
I know, and that's what's the worst thing about it, is that the line is still usually so long that you're spending that much time with nothing to do, nothing to look at.
Yeah. And unfortunately, as someone that loved the original Soarin', I will say 100% I agree with you. I think we've got time for one more because we didn't have any iTunes reviews or emails this week. So what's the last one on our list, Beth?
All right. Best stage show.
Is Brian going for Voyage of the Little Mermaid? Because I feel it coming.
So, I guess this is going to depend on what all we're grouping into the stage show category.
I would say any show that has a stage. I'd go with the absolute most literal meaning of the word.
So,
I would
and
agree.
you can be creative,
but not necessarily
go creative with it if you feel.
Permanent fixtures.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
So then this is going to be one that I just got to enjoy recently, and going with the the Hocus Pocus Spectacular at the Halloween party. I normally am not big on stage shows, but I love this.
110% agree.
Same. That's my favorite.
But for the sake of being different, I'm going to say that permanent fixtures, I would have to say it's a tie with... I really like Finding Nemo the musical just because of the... I feel like it was... The puppet technology was really cool when it first came out. Granted, I haven't seen it in a while, so that could change if I see it again. But also, Festival of the Lion King will always have a special place in my heart.
Those are two really good picks.
Yeah.
I probably would have picked Spectacular as well, and trying not to do any repeats, I would have said Fantasmic as my number 2, but I think I've talked extensively enough about that, so I'm gonna say my number 3. Which,
go right down the line.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go down the line till I get one I haven't talked about a lot. I really, really like the Castle stage show during the day, the Mickey's Royal Friendship Fair. I think it is absolutely adorable. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to stop and watch it, but it's super cute, and I'm probably a little biased because The Princess and the Frog is my favorite, and it's got a decent chunk that involves that movie, but it's a really cute one.
I liked that they included a lot of newer things into that one, but I definitely liked the one before it more.
Oh yeah, Dream Along.
The worst part of that is like when it was there, I could not bring myself to stop and watch it like more than once. Like I had seen it a couple times, but it was one of those things that like every time it was there, I would pass by it, and then when it left, I would like find myself humming the songs, and I'm like, okay, that's weird, but I don't think I'll ever see myself doing that with whatever the new one's
Friendship
called.
Fair.
Thank you.
Yeah. I definitely hum that one after, if I think about it. It gets stuck in my head, but I really, really like Dream Along too, and I was very sad to see that show go. But I like the replacement, and I think that they did a good job of updating it and still keeping kind of a similar formula.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if they still do it, but I remember when they first announced that they were gonna have like a seasonal song with it. Do they still change it up, or is it like consistently the same every show?
I don't know about necessarily adding a song, but I do know that they changed the costuming depending on the season.
Right.
So they may or may not add a song. Maybe I haven't seen it enough times to know that a song was added.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be just the costumes, but I liked the idea that it was going to rotate. That was like at least the original plan for it. So that's pretty cool. Also, another honorable mention, if we're going like kind of off-stage shows, I'm going to include this one just because it's kind of a stage. The area that's established for this attraction, I guess you could consider it a stage, but I would say Great Moments in History is a very good one. And that's more of like an off pick, just because I don't think anyone would really consider that a stage show besides, or just Streetmosphere, I think is what you would call that.
It is fantastic, though.
For sure.
So good. And that's one that, like, the songs get stuck in my head on for that, too.
Yeah.
So. All right. Is there anything you guys want to say before we wrap this up this week? Anything you guys want to talk about?
Y'all go see Olaf's Frozen Adventure before you have to wait till it comes out on DVD. Tomorrow's
I like
your
that
last
you say
chance.
that, but it's not going to be there when this episode goes up.
Listeners,
gosh.
yesterday was your last chance. Take advantage now.
Use your time travel machines and go back to the theater a week ago.
I'm going to leave that in this episode, too. I hope you know that.
It's like we're just rubbing it in everyone's faces.
Guess what, guys? It's gone.
That's funny.
What about you, Brian? Anything you want to say before we tie this off?
Nah, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Station 71 podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us an iTunes review while you're there, just so we can get some feedback and, read your comments on the show. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Station71pod. We're on Twitter at Station71pod and Instagram at Station71podcast. You can also send us your listener emails to station71podcast@gmail.com. We hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll see you real soon.